Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special event. My name is Cheryl Wills, a journalist here in New York City. I work for New York One News. And it's a rare privilege and an honor for me to be here today in this great hall where important decisions are made. I am proud to be the great-great-great-granddaughter of Sandy Wills, an African-American slave who was held in bondage in the state of Tennessee. And my African roots are what bring me here today. I take great interest in what happened when the Ebola virus swept through Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. This nation and many of you in this room gathered together to take a stand against a potential epidemic that threatened to wipe out villages. But so many of us gathered to say, not this time, not in these villages, and not for these beautiful African people. And I am not here today to talk so much about how horrific that was, but I'm here today to talk about the people that made a difference. We begin our event with His Excellency, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Please welcome him.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Angelo Antonio Torriello, Deputy Permanent Representative of São Tomé and Príncipe, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to be with you this evening. I thank the government of São Tomé and Príncipe and with the Friendship Ambassadors Foundation, the United African Congress, and give them a hand foundation for organizing this concert. We are here to celebrate progress and urge solidarity in the final push to defeat Ebola and help the affected countries build for a better future. Last December, I visited West Africa to see how much has been achieved by the people and government of Guinea, Liberia, Mali, and Sierra Leone. I came back inspired by the courage of the survivors and those working selflessly at the front lines. 5 months ago, the forecast was bleak. Cases were doubling every 2 to 3 weeks. But today, we face a very different situation, but we know that Ebola can be beaten. At the heart of the success has been the response of communities and local and national authorities. And behind them, we have seen an unprecedented global coalition of governments, regional organizations, civil society actors, development banks, and philanthropic foundations. Countries from near and far, of great and small states, have deployed experts, donated supplies, and contributed funds. The United Nations has played an important role. The UN Mission for Ebola Emergency Response, UNMEER, is our first ever emergency health mission. It has helped us to scale up and direct the response. Now we face a critical turning point. There are encouraging signs that the worst of the outbreak is behind us. This year has seen a significant decline in new cases. Surge efforts are on the way to bring the outbreaks further under control ahead of the rains. The UN system is committed to reaching the target set by the presidents of the Mano River Union of no more new cases by mid-April. The Ebola-affected countries can do this, but they need the continued help of the international community. Tomorrow, The European Commission will host a high-level conference in Brussels to help focus global resolve on finishing the job of ending Ebola in West Africa. Nobody can afford to drop this guard. The outbreak began with one case and will not be over until all countries are totally free of Ebola. And after the outbreak is over, there will be much work to do to help the affected countries recover and build back stronger and more resilient. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I appeal to you to help the United Nations as we support this important work. You can contribute directly to UN agencies, funds and programs, or to my trust fund, which has been designed to finance critical gaps in the response. Thanks to our collective efforts, the end of the road is in sight. But the last mile may well be the hardest. Let us therefore act resolutely and with the unity of purpose to end this cruel outbreak and support recovery. Let us show the affected countries that we continue to stand with them in solidarity by providing the resources they need for the job at hand. I thank you for your support.
Thank you, Excellency. The next speaker is the leader of the coalition that made this powerful event possible. He represents a group of 2 small islands off the coast of West Africa and neighbor to the countries most affected by the virus, Sao Tome and Principe. He is thankful that his country was spared the epidemic, but he believes that it's their duty to make some contribution in the fight against it, and even more importantly, to build the future so as to ensure that Africa has the wherewithal to fight all the diseases that afflict the continent, not just Ebola. Ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Sao Tome and Principe, Ambassador Angelo Torriello.
His Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General, and Madam First Lady, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Sao Tome and Principe, I would like to welcome you all and express you the profound privilege to having you all here. And it is not just an honor, but more than that, it is a touching human experience to feel your presence here as human beings, to stand together for a cause to contrast the Ebola virus, which unfortunately still continues to strike violently. In fact, and though Sao Tome and Principe is a small country and not being affected by the virus, we thought to support our African brothers by organizing, in collaboration with the coalition led by members of the civil society and NGOs, this modest event with intent to recall awareness on it, in order to alert the community at large and the stakeholders to remain vigilant, as the virus is still there in ambush. Only thanks to this coalition of human beings and the great support of the many UN agencies and staffs, we could make this program possible. But since time is very limited, and to allow the execution of this program, I won't dwell on praising them, because the program itself will speak about their greatness. Therefore, Mr. Secretary General, allow me just for some time to extend my speech beyond the main subject, which is the Ebola, and to talk about human beings. As this evening, your presence, together with the diplomatic and civil community, witnesses something that goes just beyond the protocols alone. And it is a presence witnessing the human support for microstates like Sao Tome and Principe and their goodwill to be part of the development of a global betterment. Yes, Mr. Secretary General, particularly your presence here together with the other diplomats today is witnessing to stand for the smallest and the weakest, contrasting in this way a mentality made by old scheme of thinking where the survival of the fittest seems to be the only prevailing rule of the society. In view of this, Mr. Secretary General, allow us to be with you, standing for the same values of justice and equality which are yet the flag of your long campaign, and allow us to loudly say that this evening, this Ebola program is not a show-off event, part of a show to entertain the audience, or to compete for some award, and neither to impress some jury to be judged as a successful program or a flop. No, Mr. General, it is not in this way. Nothing like that, but simply this event has been realized as a medium to spread awareness in support of human life. And it has been realized at any cost with passion, dedication, to just give something back to our African brothers who along the course of history have been in one way or the other affected by severe collateral effects, let me call them like this, due to unwisdom of humandom. So, there would be a lot to say, but simply I conclude saying that this evening, your presence, Mr. Secretary General, your presence, Excellencies, your human presence all has already made a difference. Since we all have yet inoculated a stronger virus in the sick human system, much more powerful than any Ebola virus, and which is the only one to be able to fight any virus like the Ebola. This virus, the name is love and care for each other, for the human beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. As an American, I was quite proud to see that my president and my country stepped up to help fight Ebola in West Africa, with particular emphasis on Liberia, a country, of course, with historic ties to the United States. America sent more than 4,000 personnel to help fight the epidemic, and I dare say it's had a positive impact in doing so. The next speaker can tell you all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, the permanent representative of the United States to the United Nations, Ambassador Samantha Power.
Good evening, everybody. I am completely honored to be a part of this important event, and I want to thank Mr. Secretary General, Mrs. Bond, for being here and for honoring the important cause that we're here to join forces to continue to combat by being here. And I want to thank all of you as well for taking time out of your days to show your support. In order to understand the promise and the urgency of responding to Ebola in March 2015, we have to understand the devastation caused by the epidemic over the last year and the cruelty of the disease when it strikes. Back before the international community mobilized to provide an impactful number of Ebola treatment units, labs, health worker training sessions, motorcycles, bicycles, SIM cards, chlorine, cash, the list goes on. But back before all of that, it was not obvious that we could bend the curve of the epidemic. Last September, one staff worker with Médecins Sans Frontières, Pierre Turbovich, who worked at one of the biggest Ebola treatment centers in existence at that time in West Africa, wrote about his experience telling patients and their relatives that MSF could not take them in. With the number of new infections spiraling wildly, he wrote, quote, "The first person I had to turn away was a father who had brought his sick daughter in the trunk of his car. He was an educated man, and he pleaded with me to take his teenage daughter, saying that while he knew we couldn't save her life, at least we could save the rest of his family from her. Other families just pulled up in cars, let the sick person out, and then drove off, abandoning them. One mother tried to leave her baby on a chair, hoping that if she did, we would have no choice but to care for the child." End quote. But the clinic was full. There were too few clinics. The human toll of the Ebola epidemic has been staggering. Think for a second about the heartbreak associated with any one of the thousands of boys and girls who have lost a mother or father to the virus, or the incalculable loss of warmth in countries where people used to hug when they met, but who are now told not even to wipe the tears from the eyes of a sick child in case the child might be infected. Or the pain experienced by the people who have beaten the virus only to find themselves stigmatized or even run out of town by their friends and their communities when they attempt to go home. The Ebola epidemic generated fear around the world, including right here in New York. When Dr. Craig Spencer became infected after returning from helping patients in Guinea, many were inclined to hit the panic button. I experienced this in my own home. When President Obama asked me to take a trip to the region, my 5-year-old son, Declan, begged me not to travel to the Bola place. He said, "Mommy, there's Bola there." It took the calming words of my mother, a physician, to reassure my little boy that the virus was not airborne and that the protocols to stay safe were reliable. I later heard that concerned parents at my son's school had discussed whether my boy should be required to stay home for 21 days after I got back to the States. There was fear everywhere. The reason we have begun to turn the tide on this epidemic is not just that many countries, including many represented here and certainly including the United States, dug deep and stepped up to provide resources. That's one reason, and it's a critical reason. But the tide is turning above all because we did not let our fear drown out our understanding and appreciation of our common security and our common humanity. The United States and many other countries did not close our borders. Doctors and nurses continued to pour into the hot zone. Thousands of Liberians, Sierra Leoneans, and Guineans volunteered to join safe burial teams, to man chlorine stations, and to educate their neighbors about how Ebola was spread and how it could be stopped. These individuals, heroes who should be remembered centuries from now, were what President Obama called hope mobilizers. Hope mobilizers. And at different paces in different communities, we have seen hope slowly beginning to conquer fear. In the book The Plague, Albert Camus wrote, quote, "It could be said that once the faintest stirring of hope became possible, the dominion of plague was ended," end quote. In this epidemic, the plague has far from ended, but estimates show a 99% weekly case reduction in Liberia, an 86% weekly case reduction in Sierra Leone, and an 84% weekly case reduction in Guinea. That is something. Ebola has shown that it can charge back with a vengeance, and no country and no individual will be immune until we have reached 0 cases. Having bent the curve, as we now have, we must dedicate ourselves with body and soul to ending it altogether. Every infection is a tragedy, and the end to this tragedy is within our reach. Thank you.
Our next speaker hails from Sierra Leone, one of the countries ravaged by the disease, and thankfully they're battling their way back. He will be speaking on behalf of 3 West African nations most affected. He is a highly respected diplomat and, interestingly, a former staff member of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ambassador Vandi Mina, permanent representative of Sierra Leone to the United Nations.
Mr. Secretary General, Mrs. Pan, when we all learned of this epidemic called Ebola over a year ago, there was a sense of fear, there was a sense of desperation, and there was a sense of hopelessness. Since then, as I stand here today, we know there is now a sense of cautious hope. That sense of hope was engendered not solely by diplomats or presidents or prime ministers, but by those who recognized that our common humanity demanded a common, united response, and by those who were dedicated to helping their fellow man. I speak of those on the front line, from diverse nations all over the world, who sent their medical workers, their medical technicians, their scientists, and the best among them to help the 3 most affected nations. Together, we have turned the tide, but our journey is not over yet. Beyond Ebola, we will look to see how we can strengthen the communities, the societies, and the nations most affected. There is a responsibility for the 3 governments. There is a responsibility for the United Nations. But most of all, each of us have an individual responsibility to make sure that we lend a hand and that we stay united, we stay strong, and we stay committed until we get to that last patient. Ladies and gentlemen, as a diplomat, as a former United Nations member, staff member, I am committed to this organization. But beyond that, I'm committed to our common humanity. And when called upon, Sierra Leone, as the 100th member of this United Nations, will play its role in this United Nations and beyond. For now, I would like to express my gratitude for all of those who have made this event possible. It is my distinct pleasure to be here, and it's also my distinct privilege to serve as Sierra Leone's ambassador to the United Nations. At this critical time, we'll celebrate through music, we'll celebrate through art. But most of all, let us commemorate those who have fallen on the battlefield of this disease called Ebola. Let us also remember the families of those who have fallen, and let us also remember the victims, the orphans, and those who remain dedicated day in, day out in heat that some of you cannot imagine, putting on these suits and doing what most of us cannot think of doing. They are and will remain the best of us. At this time, we come together to mark the progress that has been made. But we also called upon to rededicate ourselves to what remains to be done. Sierra Leone is a small country of about 6 million people. Liberia and Guinea also are small nations. But they have suffered a disproportionate effect of this disease. It is a global emergency, and it has been declared as such. So therefore, it is a responsibility for all of us, in our own diverse ways, in our own small ways, to do what we can. Nations big and small have responded, but also NGOs, individuals from various countries. And I thank all of you who have made an effort, who have made a commitment, and continue to help us engender and maintain that sense of hope. I thank you very much.
The next speaker does not represent a country from Africa. However, like his country, he was moved by the suffering caused to the people of Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, and the epidemic really touched him. In the true tradition of "there before the grace of God go I," he wanted to express some words of encouragement at this event. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ambassador Sebastiano Cardi, permanent representative of Italy to the United Nations.
Thank you very much. It is true that Italy is not an African country, but we are very close to them and to this fight. Also geographically, we are very close to the borders of Africa, of course. Mr. Secretary General, Mrs. Ban, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, first of all, I'd like to thank the mission and the authorities of Sao Tome and Principe and Ambassador Toriello for having organized this timely event. This latest report assessing the Ebola outbreak and the response by the international community and the United Nations emergency mission in particular, to which we must extend a big thank you. The Secretary General highlights the overall significant decline in the number of new cases of Ebola in the three most affected countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, stressing, however, that setbacks can quickly follow apparent gains. There is the need for constant vigilance to ensure that this promising trend decline is not reversed and is sustained in the upcoming months. Yet we are witnessing this decline, and it speaks volume of the results that international cooperation can achieve in facing transnational threats such as Ebola. It is a huge collective effort. We must continue with resolve and determination until we meet the zero-case target. One new case of contagion is too much, is one too much. One new case is one too dangerous. In assessing the overall decline, our gratitude goes first and foremost to the authority of the affected countries, to the UNMIR, the mission of the United Nations, to the health workers on the ground. They are the protagonists of this fight, and towards them we have an obligation to ensure they work in the safest possible conditions and that the fight against Ebola continue to remain high on the international agenda and receive the funding it needs. The role of local political leadership is also essential in bringing the epidemic under control and hitting the zero target. Italy, as I said before, is close to this fight. We'll continue to remain highly committed to this common endeavor and will continue to contribute to the multilateral effort required to get into zero. We are doing so with a comprehensive approach encompassing public funding, the role of private hospitals in Italy, the work on the ground of several Italian NGOs, and their presence in the countries affected, which is contributing to the achievement of our common target. As we move towards the zero target, we must also start paving the road from emergency towards recovery, addressing the economic and social setbacks the epidemic has created in the affected countries and improving preparedness and prevention mechanisms in order to avert new crises. We must take stock of the lesson learned both at national and international level to improve early warning and early response mechanisms, focusing on the need to rethink healthcare systems and assist the affected countries in their needs. In this context, I wish to conclude my brief remarks by recalling the high-level meeting the European Commission is organizing tomorrow in Brussels to consider the additional actions required to end the epidemic and to discuss a set of principles to guide the recovery of the three affected countries. I thank you very much.
Next is a leader on the local and the national front and one of the initiators of this very special event. He is a Sierra Leone native, and he takes what's been happening there very personally. He is the Senior Advisor to the Police Commissioner of New York City and President and National Spokesperson of the United African Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sadiq Y.
Your Excellency, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and Mrs. Moon, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. You know, before I say anything, I was told, threatened by Ambassador Torriero, that there is a partnership between diplomacy and humanity. So he calls it humanisy. So today, my colleagues asked me to stand here. I'm not an ambassador, but I come from the hood. And today, Secretary General, I know Honorable Samantha Powers is here. They have been passing legislation for green cards and blue cards, but we are in the People's House, so INS, you could stay away, no immigration, we are under executive privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be serious a little bit. I stand here as a living proof of what Africa is like. I was born in Sierra Leone. My father was born in Liberia. And my grandmother was born in Guinea-Bissau. So I personally have a personal interest of what is going on. But let me be honest. This event tonight will not have been possible without the clear support of the Secretary General, Honorable Samantha Powers, Ambassador Torriero, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and let me tell you about the Musketeers. All of those, Gordon Tapper, he's Jamaican, Yaman, and Dr. Mohammed Nur Hussein, a distinguished professor of medicine from Ethiopia. Oh, by the way, Ethiopia also sent doctors like the Cubans did when others were closing the doors. So, why don't I just say, all of those wonderful people that were responsible for putting this thing together, I don't know whether this is out of protocol, but the truth must be told that it's a partnership between civil society and this great house that we're in. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, could you just stand and let the people see you in the people's house? And then I could shut up and listen. Give them a big round of applause. I will shut up and listen, and thank you and God bless you.
Thank you for that, Sadiq. At this point, we're going to have a change of pace. My husband just said, "You're too serious up there. Smile a little bit." So I'm going to smile, okay? And we are going to have some music and some dancing. And this is the one time in the General Assembly where you are free to dance in the aisles if you so choose. We are going to hear some beautiful African music to celebrate how we have overcome Ebola. Can I get a round of applause for that? It threatened to take them out, but we fought back. The world fought back. And we are going to hear the music of Chieck Hamala Diabate, who is one of the most popular and prominent musicians in Africa. He is from the great nation of Mali, and he was a Grammy nominee. He's also performed at the Kennedy Center and the Smithsonian. He is from a family of griots, and his favorite instrument is the ngoni. That's an instrument that sounds a lot like a banjo, but still a lot better than the banjo. And ladies and gentlemen, he is going to shake this place to the rafters. So buckle up your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you Chieck Hamala Diabate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are Chieck Hamala's band. Thank you very much for having us here. Chieck Hamala is an international griot from Mali, but he's not an ordinary griot. He tells about the story that was actually told him 800 years ago, and he's still carrying the same message. We are honored to be here for the same purposes, to fight this deadly disease called Ebola. Chieck Hamala, as you know, is from Mali and from Guinea, Ghana, so we have all Africa representing here today. Once again, we are happy to be here, and it is an honor. Are you guys ready to have fun? We're gonna shake the house tonight. Are you guys ready to have fun? Let's go.
Danama, Mamadou Fofana.
Polisi Danama,
Kalilu Danama, Kalulu Kamara.
Kalulu Danama.
Chronic bunga, yoli yoli, mitama ko kreve, yoli yoli, hena bi ko jila, yoli yoli, hoja bali jila, yoli yoli, kamala ni bunga, yoli yoli, mitama ko kreve, yoli yoli, hena bi ko jila, yoli yoli, hoja bali jila, yoli yoli, kapa koro bunga, yoli yoli, mitama ko kreve, yoli yoli, hena bi ko jila, yoli yoli, hoja bali, ayoli yoli, baba, yoli yoli, odi, ayoli yoli, baba, yoli yoli, luena. Yoli yoli hey, yoli yoli. Dama ko krefe, yoni yoni, ena bi ko jila, yoni yoni, hoja bali jila, yoni yoni, kamale ni kunga, yoni yoni, nimi dama ko krefe, yoni yoni, ena bi ko jila, yoni yoni, hoja bali jila, yoni yoni, kamale ni kunga, yoni yoni, nima frane musola, yoni yoni, ebi kokse, yoni yoni, karate, yoni yoni, kajiro pila, yoni yoni, ena bi ko jila, yoni yoni, hoja bali, ayoni yoni, baba, yoni yoni, oh ni ba UN, yoni yoni. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. We are so happy to be here tonight. Actually, we hear everybody know for why. So my English, I'm sorry, but it's about the Ebola. Ebola no good, right? But the guy here in the house, his name is Mohammed Kouazi from Sierra Leone. When the Ebola came to Africa, this guy never sleep. He worried too much for Africa. He's in the house here. He's from Sierra Leone, Mohammed Kouazi, something like that. But he do a lot for Washington, D.C. area to put together, to looking the solution for this sickness. And we put together to do big concert in Washington. And tonight I'm here from him again, from Washington, all my band. We got to thank for him to think about Africa a lot. Mohammed from Sierra Leone. Put your hand together for Mohammed. And I composed this song, the one we're going to play, to tell people Ebola is no good. Can you say Ebola is no good? Ebola is no good. We're looking for the solution. And thank you, America, again. God bless America. Thank you. Ebola mani, Eva, Ebola mani, Ebola mani, Ebola mani, Ebola mani, Ebola mani, yeah. Vamos. Bana juguni ni misacha mane Ebola banaye Bade ganata tunya Tunga madamelo et que je dors, et je ne pleure. Je pense entendre que mes serrés dans mes bras. Et tu es bonheur, et je en paix. Et reste pour la tête de la vie de toi. Chieck Hamala Diabate. Chieck Hamala Diabate. Come on. C'en est joli.
Oh yeah, oh, my land has been ravished. Oh, my mother, my father, my love are gone. Oh, my heart is breaking, my soul like dry bones under the ocean. Oh, Ebola money and I, Ebola money and I, Ebola money and I, 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 and I. Oh,
C'en est joli. Microbass.
Thank you very much. So we are just one more, because when this program, when the Chieck Hamala to come, I'm very happy. But this is a good instrument we call goni. Can you say goni? It's a very old instrument from Mali. When we play tonight, it's gonna bring good success and happiness to you guys, and take Ebola out, okay? Thank you. Ebola manye, Ebola manye, Ebola manye, Ebola manye.
Ebola money. Everyone. Ebola money. Ebola money. Ebola money. Ebola money. Ebola money. Mohamedi Ebola money. Sidiki Ebola money. Amoro Ebola money. Sani Ebola money. Galisi Ebola money. Kweku Ebola money. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, New York. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much. That was amazing. After that electric display of musicianship, perhaps we need to cool down a bit. Thanks again, Chieck. I understand, by the way, he has a new CD out. Check him out on Amazon.com. And ladies and gentlemen, we will now play a video that will show some aspects of the Ebola epidemic and the fight staged by the affected countries and the international community. You will see some of the life and death challenges faced by people every day and the moments of triumph that gave rise to hope and determination. Please watch.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
Ebola is a vicious killer.
There'll be a day. There'll be a way.
At the first Security Council meeting on September 18th, 134 nations came together to pass a resolution pledging to tackle this deadly outbreak with urgency and vigor, the greatest number of co-sponsors in the UN's history.
No more hungry children, no more tears. There'll be a better tomorrow.
Having lost her entire family, has now taken in orphans who were complete strangers, but she is the Good Samaritan.
There'll be a better tomorrow.
We're dispatching burial teams, we're dispatching ambulances to pick up sick patients.
We've removed up to 5 cases here. We are visiting here again today to see if there are more cases.
We are going in with the community members themselves leading the process.
How everybody is in everybody well?
There's been a very significant mobilization of international personnel, resources, capabilities to work side by side with the government, and those efforts are starting to pay off.
We will not sort out this crisis if we still have crisis in Guinea, if we still have crisis in Liberia.
This is the first time you will go out there when the capacity is in place to hunt the virus instead of being hunted by the virus.
There are facilities now for treating people. There are teams available to bury in a safe and dignified way those who are unfortunately not able to survive. There are centres where the whole response is being coordinated at the district level.
It took us a few months to work together, try to identify, try to learn what needs to be done.
There'll be a better tomorrow.
fait plaisir de voir mes élèves en tenue.
Work by national governments, NGOs, UN agencies, bilateral partners, and UNMIR as well.
We cannot be telling people protect yourself from Ebola, but then we see that there are other problems.
We are not doing business. Fishing's closed. Children are not going to school. We are not seeing friends. So it affects us. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow.
We have to fight back.
Wasn't that touching? Needless to say, as is evident from the video, the United Nations has been on the front lines in the struggle and the dedication of their staff who, over the decades, has put their lives on the line in dozens of theaters around the world, and they should be commended tonight. Now, the next speaker is someone who knows more about the work of the international community in this fight against Ebola and has seen firsthand how it has affected dozens of citizens and thousands of citizens and how they marshaled their efforts just to survive. He has served in the United Nations in multiple capacities in many different regions of the world, usually in places we would call hotspots, ranging from Cambodia to Croatia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Tony Banbury, former Special Representative of the Secretary General, head of the United Nations Mission for Ebola Emergency Response. Mr. Banbury.
Good evening, Secretary General, Madame Ban, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, guests, and especially performers as well. It's a wonderful evening and a real thrill to be here with all of you. It's a fantastic sign of support of the international community for the ongoing struggle to end Ebola and solidarity with the people of the countries most affected by Ebola. We all just heard a wonderful performance by Chieck Hamala, and I know there are many more wonderful performances to come, so I will keep my words brief. I want to thank Cheryl Wills and all the organizers of this event for making it such a special time. I was very honored when the Secretary General chose me as his special representative and the head of the UN Mission for Ebola Emergency Response. And I'd like to share just two observations about my experience and what I learned in terms of what is responsible for really turning the crisis around and making the dramatic improvements we've seen. The first was, and Ambassador Power was talking about this, what was happening back in the summertime during this crisis period. And we saw a big mobilization of international political will. And we have to remember back then the chaotic scenes on TV screens, the fear, the unknown, the dire projections of what was going to happen, and an ineffective response at that time. And it was the United Nations Secretary General who, into that chaotic environment, asserted himself and took leadership of the issue, international ownership of it. He appointed a special coordinator, appointed an Ebola crisis manager. He convened a high-level meeting of government officials, heads of state, here at the General Assembly Hall. He called world leaders from all over the globe, and he established this first-ever UN Global Health Emergency Mission. That mobilization of international political will led to the resources and actions that were necessary to support the efforts on the ground. And yes, there were many other world leaders like President Obama and Prime Minister Abe who were instrumental in helping to mobilize that will. But I think that turning point came about in August and September when the United Nations Secretary General really asserted his leadership and generated the will we needed. As many were heading for the exits from the countries amidst the fear and the panic, the United Nations was charged by our Secretary General to enter into the crisis and stand side by side with the governments and the people. The second issue that, aspect that really made such a big difference, I think, as much as the international community and the United Nations contributed to turning things around, it's as Ambassador Van de Mina said, it was the governments and the communities themselves of the Ebola-affected countries who really carried the burden. And through their efforts, with the help of the international community, it's they who turned it around. They were confronted by this horrifying, deadly, terrible disease that was destroying families, ripping apart communities, forcing dramatic changes in behavior. And it was strong government leadership, the presidents, President Sirleaf Johnson, President Bai Koroma, President Condé, President Keita of Mali. These presidents, they're very professional, hardworking officials and the communities who work side by side with the United Nations and their partners. But they were the ones who carried the heaviest load. And many people often say to me, what a great job the United Nations did in helping to contribute to the end of Ebola. But the truth is, it's an honor and it's a privilege for the United Nations to work side by side with our partners in the government, in the communities during such a crisis. And I was very privileged to have been part of that. Now the situation is much better, but it's not good enough. As has been said, we need to get to 0 cases, but 0 cases isn't good enough either. We need to help the countries build healthcare systems that are capable of not responding to a crisis like this, but preventing it. We don't need to respond, we need to avoid a crisis like this. And that means strong government and community-based surveillance systems. And we, as the United Nations, will continue with great honor, pride, and humility to stand side by side with our government partners and our friends in the countries that have been affected to help make that happen. Finally, I would just like to say a dear friend and colleague and a staff member of UNMIR, Martine Perret, who's a beautiful photographer. She is getting married on Friday, and I want to wish her the very best in her marriage and thank her for her work in West Africa when her fiancé is waiting at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Banbury. Lisa Vanderpump, maybe some of you have heard of her. She is known to millions of people who watch television. She is indeed one of the most popular television personalities, as well as a prominent restaurateur, and most importantly, a humanitarian. She is a major supporter of this organization, Keeping the Memory Alive, formed to bring awareness to various neurological diseases, including Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. She passionately believes that those who have should give. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lisa Vanderpump.
Thank you, members of the Executive Board and distinguished delegates, for having me today. I'm honored to be here. The current Ebola outbreak has taken more victims than every other outbreak combined. The graphic images of victims lying bleeding from the gut and people stepping over them is heart-wrenching. We have to be proactive and increase funding for research, or we are guilty of stepping over them as a nation. We have seen evidence of success with regard to Dr. Brent Stanley of a cure, but funding is essential. It is not just a West African problem. We are a global community, and it is our problem. And I urge all nations to pay attention to this crisis. Why am I here? I am fortunate that it is only my heart that bleeds for the 16,000 children orphaned due to the Ebola virus, because where I come from, Ebola has not affected or infected us as gravely as it has in West Africa. But I know that doesn't exonerate us from taking responsibility for the crisis that possibly lies ahead. A crisis that will torch this planet as it rapidly wreaks havoc from one community to another unless we eradicate it in its tracks. To date, I think it's over 23,000 cases have since been reported, resulting in almost 9,400 deaths, the majority coming from Guinea, Liberia, and as we know, Sierra Leone. 10,000 people died brutally at the hands of this insidious disease that first struck in 1976. This horrific fact needs to resonate with our global community, and action needs to be immediate. According to Dr. Nabarro, the United Nations Special Envoy for Ebola, the fund for the United Nations-led effort to combat and keep Ebola contained is projected to be $600 million for 2015. However, the estimated cost of defeating the epidemic in 2015 is $1.5 billion. This leaves us with nearly $1 billion gap in funding. And as you see, I don't have it, so that's why I'm here. As the United Nations, a collective representative of our beautiful and diverse world, I stand before you today to urge you to pay attention to this crisis. Liberia is showing improving signs, while the problem in Guinea remains skeptical, and Sierra Leone's is looking better, but it's still bleak. Even a small outbreak from the remaining cases could start another epidemic that could result in thousands of deaths. With proper funding, we can strengthen basic public health infrastructures and provide a more strategic emergency response team to help prevent outbreaks in unaffected countries and set up ground zero research aimed at introducing new medical products. Lastly, there is a topic that is not spoken about often, yet needs to be addressed. We have to end the shame and disgrace associated with Ebola survivors and responders. There are currently a little over 10,000 Ebola survivors in West Africa alone. Instead of being praised and celebrated for overcoming this terrible disease, these 10,000 plus survivors are often ostracized as we speak from their respective communities. Now that's wrong, because with the proper training and support, these survivors could become immune responders, thus giving them the validation and the purpose they deserve. We have made great strides in the recent year, and I want to commend the incredible effort that these doctors and health workers do as they work tirelessly in their endeavour to find a vaccine and deal with patients whilst putting their own lives at risk. However, much more needs to be done to get the Ebola numbers to zero, and it cannot be done without the help and support of a strong and impassioned global community. Work groups like MSF and Partners in Health are doing it, and I appeal to all governments to support this. I thank the UN and NGOs for their collaborative partnership in the fight to eradicate this scourge and build and strengthen the health infrastructure. Please, we all have a responsibility to the victims of the dreadful and devastating disease that these people have not died in vain. Distinguished leaders and honored guests, do not let your legacy be one of silence. We are fortunate enough that we can still learn by our mistakes. The mistake being the silence during the Reagan administration in regard to the complacency and action taken in relation to the AIDS epidemic. It was their disease. It was a gay disease. 22 million people died. 25 million people are still infected. So they were wrong. It was our disease, and it still is. And the same goes for Ebola. It is not West Africa's disease. It is ours. Let us remember, silence, apathy, and lack of support equals fatalities. Thank you.
The next group to perform will bring you to your feet. Artists with one voice. They are highly respected from their respective countries: Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and Cameroon. And there's a brother from another mother from the United States. In any event, they got together a few months ago after Ebola was ravaging West Africa to sing a song that would raise the spirits of the people battling Ebola and to tell them that they were not alone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Artists with One Voice.
Ebola, Ebola. Your name resonated to my voice when it didn't sound right. Why? Because I don't like you, he don't like you, she don't like you, we don't like you, so therefore eradicating you from the motherland is something that we are going to fight for. We already have too many stumbling blocks to worry about each day, like hunger, crime, and injustice. So no, sir, you being a virus that's a human thing is a battle that you are not going to win. We've seen enough, from senseless wars to extreme poverty. How long shall we perish? How long till the sun shines on this dark continent? We're tired of being weak, vulnerable, and submissive. So today I ask this to the African leaders that we elected. What do you do for us? Because right now I don't even know what's worse. Ebola or you that's in power? Generating all this income and accumulating all this wealth right in front of our faces.
Are you men, women, and children of greatness gone down too soon?
Children
Alima sada dema, alima siso. Jagaru yume boni tepo Ebola. Imano jagaru yubale. Dininye fala. Mobabiye fala bibo. Sungunye fala. Kamaru keneye fala. Jagaru yume boni tepo Ebola. Marinu jagaru yubale. Dininye fala wo. Mobabiye fala Anyambulu di nyoma Afikinu ka Ebola kele
Très peu de tout ce qui arrive. On ne sait rien de tout. Ebola, Ebola, tu sors d'où? On te dit de disparaître. Ebola, Ebola, tu sors d'où? On te dit de disparaître.
Ebola was silent killer Raging so hard in West Africa
See the women and children.
Women and children dying See the strong man wiped away in West Africa Ebola was silent killer Raging so hard in West Africa Women and children dying See the strong man wiped away in West Africa
Hey, any pain where you feel, myself go feel am. We all not from below. Where you cry, myself go cry.
It's the boy commits, we go down one day. We go play and laugh again. We begin and go learn, all things go fine.
Mama, Papa, brother and sister, let we join we hand for fet this sick and their bamboo.
Nani mana kodale, modani wo molomi, inile ligan.
You know I put it on in here. Me see me can need to go. You know I put it on in here. Me see me can need to go. I'm a me, I want it on the back.
Hello world, hello folks, beautiful African people. We're still standing strong in the very midst of the storm, anticipating better days and being optimistic. Still smiling even when the sun is smiling back at us. Cause we know that one day Ebola will leave and the rainbow will come out and dance with us while we don't grieve no more. Say bye-bye to the pain, our homeland will regain. Now help me sing along to the song, Beautiful
Just the
Rain.
other day, as I watched the news, I saw a older man up before his birthday case, leaving a woman to be a widow, and I saw a little girl forced to become a teen parent, all because of Ebola. Ebola way. Yes, I wanna wait. Above it, yes, I wanna wait. Today I want to yes, why, yeah. Ebola kambamu, Ebola tana, yeponi, Ebola way.
Stop the stigma and discrimination over persons infected. gotta show them love, sweet love. Take a stand on protection. Don't let Ebola take a bite. We need a speedy solution in the prevention and cure. We say thanks to every nation for all the sacrifice on the fight against Ebola, which is a global threat on the human race. I know we can overcome. Yes, I know we can overcome. Oh, yes, I know we can overcome. Hey, Ebola, hey, the silent killer. Africa, we can overcome. America, we can overcome. Oh, yes, I know we can overcome.
Put your hands together. Come on, everyone. Join us.
Australia, we can overcome. Europe and Asia, we can overcome. Oh, yes, I know we can overcome. Hey, Ebola, hey, hey, silence me. I know we can overcome. Yes, I know we can overcome. Oh, yes, I know we can overcome. Ebola, United Nations, we can overcome. Yes, I know we can overcome. Oh, yes, I know we can overcome. Hey, Ebola, hey, a silent killer.
Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the great state of New York wanted very much to be here tonight, but he was not able to do so. However, he did a very smart thing. It's good to know that our governor sent someone in his place. And that person is Dr. Zucker. Dr. Zucker will speak and directly go to a video that tells the story of survivors. Please welcome him.
Good evening, Mr. Secretary General, Mrs. Bond, ambassadors and distinguished guests. It is truly an honor to be here tonight on behalf of Governor Cuomo, who sends his regrets. We are brought together today by an epidemic that has dealt a deep heartache to 3 West African countries already besieged by war and poverty: Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. For more than a year now, these nations have been embroiled in a battle against Ebola, a virus so deadly that it kills half of those that it infects. But this isn't just a regional problem in a small corner of the world. This is an international health crisis, one that has a direct impact on New York State, and in particular, New York City, where we now sit. New York City has long been the nation's most celebrated melting pot. People come from all over the world to live among our skyscrapers, our parks, and our museums. And West Africans are no different. Today we have approximately 72,000 West Africans living in our boroughs. Like so many before them, they came in search of more and better opportunities. And like so many before them, they feel the tug of sadness and heartbreak when something bad happens in their native land. Night after night and day after day, they are joined with Americans here watching the news from afar as the virus spreads through their native countries. They cringe at the horrors of Ebola. They hold their collective breaths when the disease landed on American shores and right here in New York City. But today, the headlines have disappeared from the front pages. The news from West Africa now is about a slow return to normal, about schoolyards opening up, curfews being lifted, and the steady decline in cases of Ebola. It is all good news and a welcome reprieve, and we should rejoice in this. But it isn't quite the whole story. The truth is, Ebola is still very much alive in West Africa, despite the reductions that you have heard about. Transmission continues to spread in Sierra Leone, where 63 new cases were diagnosed just last week. And they're still getting cases of unknown transmission. Equally disturbing is the devastation left in its wake. We now have thousands of orphans having lost their parents and other family members to Ebola. Many of these kids wander the streets, victims of stigma, of hunger, of malnutrition. They need our help, and so do the people of West Africa. They need health care desperately and permanently. Ebola has taught us a harsh lesson about what can happen when large swaths of the population do not have adequate health care. Ebola has showed us that the lack of care can affect not just those in the immediate community, but also people who are thousands of miles away. So let's not forget what is still happening in West Africa and what still needs to be done. Let us work together to prevent another outbreak of this magnitude so that it never happens again. Without taking lessons of this epidemic to heart, its victims will have died in vain. Let us join together and eliminate Ebola in West Africa and let it never come back there or anywhere else in the world. And I thank you for having the opportunity to speak with you about this very important and serious illness. And now I'd like to show you a video presentation about the people who have survived this epidemic. Thank you.
As a survivor, I know what Ebola means.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
Working in this kind of place, in the ETU, giving care, taking care of the Ebola patients, you do so many works, giving them courage, giving them hope.
There'll be a way. There'll come a time to sing.
I take care of the little kids that they can bring here, and then they don't have their parents around.
No more sorrow. No more hungry children. No more tears.
I want to see Ebola getting out of Liberia. I also want for my colleagues that will contract this virus to be just like me as a survivor.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. Dance around.
I want Isa. I get can Osa. La masa puputi ata fini ko ata fameti we plot. La tata ne kan terminer américain. Mava. Na epidemic I live I suffer from Ebola.
There'll be a better tomorrow. No more war. No more religious division. Only love and compassion to heal the nation. There'll be a better tomorrow. 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 Everybody across the world show some love. Everybody across the world.
diagnosis. The medical staff presently was also supportive and provided me with constant motivation, shaking me and forcing me to believe that this is not the end of the world.
There'll be a better tomorrow. 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 There'll be a better tomorrow.
The next speaker, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, was born in North Carolina, where, as a high school student, he experienced the bitter taste of discrimination and racial inequality. He started out as an assistant to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Chavis became one of the leading civil rights leaders in the post-MLK era and also became the executive director of the NAACP. He has occupied many prominent leadership positions during his career, including Vice President of the National Council of Churches and CEO of the National African American Leadership Summit. Following Dr. Chavis's remarks, we will show another video representing the children who have been orphaned by Ebola in 3 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Benjamin Chavis.
To United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, to all of the distinguished ambassadors, brothers and sisters, I'm here tonight on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, National Association of Newspaper Publishers, the NNPA. We're the voice of Black America. And we come tonight in solidarity for this effort. We thank the leadership of the United Nations, and we thank all of you for coming out. In a few moments, we are going to see a video that focuses on the orphans that Ebola has left. And my message to you tonight is very simple. These orphans are our children. And the world community, the international gathering, we have a responsibility to make sure that these orphans not only have a good health care, but to make sure that their quality of life is the best that we can find in the world. We've risen to this occasion, not just for tonight or for this year, but lifelong. We must look after these orphans, and we must prevent Ebola and any other deadly disease that would threaten the existence of humankind. Thank you for your support as you listen and watch this video. Not only look at it and see it and hear it, feel it, because we want you to feel their aspirations to live and to thrive. God bless this assembly. We have much work yet still to do. Thank you.
I was all by myself. No one to play with. My father was the first. He was getting sick, but he wasn't vomiting, he wasn't toileting. He was only crying. The first day that he got sick, he cried on his hair. The next day, she started to talk out about it. She said, "What? I can't make it." I said, "Man, stop that." He said, "I can't make it again. What that?" They say we come from we Ebola people. Drinking water it will have for us. To go and bath in the magazine it will have for us. We send somewhere around us.
Here about the picture. What on the picture? Yeah.
That's how the street job people come in and started to help us with water and food. All of us are getting healthy. And the people quarantine our 21 days. Our 21 days were coming to an end. Think that Ebola will go away because our people are fighting Ebola.
Ladies and gentlemen, this next young lady comes from Jamaica. In the tradition of Bob Marley, Burning Spear, and others of their day, writing positive lyrics that speak of inner strength. She's been called a pocket of dynamite who can really rock a crowd. Etana has donated her song Better Tomorrow to the cause to help support children like you just saw who are orphaned due to Ebola. We are fortunate to have her with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Etana.
Good evening, everyone. I love it here. All right. You love reggae music? Are you ready for some reggae music? All right. Let's go, Kevo. Any day.
I seen you rock so. Now it's time to play. You move me like the wind blow. As night becomes a day, I know you want to go slow, to where I don't know. But you know what? Rockin' is the true road. Hear me when I say you're just like reggae. Hit me like a drum. You're just like reggae. Play cards and I will strum. You're just like reggae. Sing out and I will come. Oh, reggae, you're the one. Once you tried to leave me, yeah, said I was on my own. But you know what? Music won't deceive me, no. I won't be alone. I know you want to go slow, to where I don't know. But what? Rockin' is the true road. Hear me when I say you're just like reggae. Hit me like a drum. You're just like reggae. Play cards and I will strum. You're just like reggae. Sing out and I will come. Oh, reggae, you're the one. When I talk about reggae music, I talk about hearing the keyboard bang like this. Rock so only in reggae music. Rock so. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh reggae, I talk about hearing the bass line roar. And when the bass line rolls, ladies are often rocking the waistline. Rock so. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh reggae, I talk about hearing the drums beat. Rock so. Rock so. Rock so. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh reggae, I talk about hearing the guitar wheel. Rock so. Rock so. Oh yeah. Oh reggae. All right, let me hear you say reggae. Say reggae. Say reggae, 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 reggae. Say reggae, 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 reggae. Say reggae. Say reggae. All right. Oh reggae, you're the one. You're just like my heart beats to your drum.
Now this next song is called I Rise. No matter what you go through, there's another day when you wake up and you know that you have the opportunity to make it better than the day before. Are you ready? All right. I was born strong. I was made for this. See, I met so many hard times when I thought I couldn't make it. See, I had my trials when my pillows dried my eyes. Then the morning came and my wings took flight. I rise, see, I'm hurting but not broken. Down but I won't die. I rise, soon I will reach the sky and still I rise. Some say it's a mystery how I still believe that in spite of all I've been through, I can still push the wheel. See, I have a power they can't see with their eyes. It's a little thing called faith that makes broken wings fly. I rise, see, I'm hurting but not broken. Down but I won't die. I rise, the sky and still I rise. You can understand we're just an ordinary man. Defies the odds and still fights on to win. I can take it. I can make it. I rise. See, I'm hurting but not broken. Down but I won't die. I rise. Soon I will reach the sky and still I rise. See, I'm hurting but not broken. Down but I won't die. I rise. Soon I will reach the sky. Soon I will reach the sky. Soon I will reach the sky. And still I Now this is when we talk about one perfect love. And I want to ask up the one they call the great King, Bob Marley. No matter, I just have to say that man love continues to grow. Even after his transformation, you know. Ready? Let me see you do this. Everybody. Hey. I wanna love you and treat you right. I wanna, every day and every night we'll be together. Jah provide the bread. What is it? Is this love? Is this love? Love that I'm feeling. All right. Is this love? Love that I'm feeling. Yeah. I wanna know how. I got to know. I live in the neighborhood. Oh yeah. So I throw my cards on the table. You know what? I wanna love you. I wanna love and treat you. Love and treat you right. I wanna love you every day and every night. We'll be together. Oh yeah. With a roof right over our head, we'll share the shelter of what? On my single bed, we'll share the same room, same room. Oh, Jah, provide the bread. Is this love, 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 love that I'm feeling? Boy, is this love, 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 feeling? All right, is this love, 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 love that I'm feeling? One more time, is this love, 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 love that I'm feeling? I'm talking about that one unconditional love. Loving someone, appreciating someone, no matter what they look like, what they believe in. One perfect love. Now, when I wrote this song, I watched this story about a little boy who had to search the dump for plastic bottles to trade in to feed him, his sister, and his relatives, everybody. And he found what we would normally throw out, like a rotten banana. It was black or brown. And he jumped up and he was so excited. And he broke it and shared it with his sister. And you know what? We have so much, and yet we refuse to share. And he had one banana that he found and he broke it. And I want you all to know that no matter what you go through, even in your hardest days, never to give up. There'll be a better tomorrow. 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 There'll be a day. There'll be a way. There'll come a time to sing a brand new song. No more pain.
tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, oh, yeah, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, oh, 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 yeah, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, oh, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, oh, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, oh, tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better.
If you believe that there'll be a better tomorrow, let me see you do this.
There'll be a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all the organizers for making it possible, and to you for sharing and caring. One perfect love. Bless you, love.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
Etana! Wow. Wasn't she amazing? Would Bob Marley be proud of that sister or what? Oh my goodness. We are going to have very quick closing remarks, and she is coming right back, so the band can stay very close. We are just going to have closing remarks from Dr. Mohammed Nur Hussein. He's from Ethiopia, and he's the chairman of the United African Congress, which is a not-for-profit organization that seeks to look after the interests of people in the diaspora, as well as the entire continent of Africa. And one of the goals of the UAC is to see a United States of Africa. Dr. Nur Hussein was twice voted by his peers as the best doctor in the Sunni system, and he is a proud Pan-Africanist. And after Dr. Nur Hussein, we're bringing Etana back out with the artists of One Voice for a grand finale. So please welcome Dr. Mohammed Nur Hussein.
Are we having a good time or what? While this is about hope, a message of renewal, a message of rebuilding, I think it's only appropriate that we also pause for a moment to remember the close to 10,000 people that have lost their lives due to Ebola. A moment of silence, please. Okay. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to express on behalf of the coalition my deep appreciation to the DPR of Sao Tome and Principe, Ambassador Angelo Torriello, who has been tirelessly working with the principal organizers and their partners, believing in the core message, which is to continue to raise and maintain heightened awareness of the Ebola virus disease, and focusing on the daunting task ahead in its aftermath. It may be recalled that the United African Congress, Give Them a Hand Foundation, and their diaspora coalition partners We're among the first to hold a major awareness-raising forum on the global threat of Ebola, held on August 27, 2014. We had then called on an international coordinated intervention on a massive scale to stem the tide of the then raging epidemic and to create a health emergency rapid response system to address effectively this and future outbreaks, and to establish an African CDC. It is gratifying to see some of those are already in place and making a difference. The human, economic, and socio-cultural cost of the epidemic is extremely high. Some 16,000 children are orphaned by the disease, stigmatized, shunned, and abandoned. Ebola battle is far from over, says President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia, reminding us it is too early to declare victory and to relax. The conditions that existed prior to the explosive outbreak, namely poor health infrastructure, poverty, and heavy disease burden, still remain and require an even greater commitment from the international community to address those core issues, lest we revisit another health catastrophe. Dr. Kim, president of the World Bank, had stated, "The crisis," and I quote, "could have been averted by investment in strengthening health care systems," end of quote. I hope this seemingly obvious truth gets translated into actionable programs by international financial institutions and governments as they ponder support for the three countries emerging from the health crisis. The heroic people of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone face a formidable challenge ahead, following the worst Ebola epidemic the world has ever seen. They have the arduous task of rebuilding a shattered economy and helping a traumatized populace. Ebola virus disease is not Sierra Leonean or Liberian or Guinean, as was made clear earlier. It is a global one and requires a global response. More so now as we approach the post-Ebola period to jumpstart a stymied human development in the three countries. In closing, the Coalition would like to pay special tribute to the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who has been a passionate advocate on behalf of the Ebola victims, seeing firsthand during his visit to the three West African countries, mobilizing resources of the world body towards eradicating the scourge of Ebola and helping the survivors put their lives back together. To Ambassador Samantha Power, who, along with President Obama, took a leadership role on this matter by holding General Assembly and Security Council debate, calling on the international community to lend a hand. She visited the three affected countries at the height of the epidemic, when fear, ignorance, and panic characterized the public reaction to the disease. The US led by example. Cuba is another that stepped up, as did China, Ethiopia, several African countries, as well as countries in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. A shining example of international solidarity and collaboration confronting a common threat. We are grateful to the ambassadors of Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia, as well as the African Union Observer Mission, who have been supportive of our efforts, giving us the time, the encouragement, and wise counsel that is much appreciated. We thank the mission of Sao Tome and Principe for its primary sponsorship role in this effort. I would also like to thank the Ambassador of Italy to the United Nations and through him to the people and government of Italy for their support. I would like to thank our friend and legal counsel, Mr. Thomas Moverman, for his personal generosity, and New York Presbyterian Hospital for sponsoring to help defray part of the cost of holding this concert. Each and every member of our coalition partners devoted countless hours every day for the last 3 months to this effort and deserve our collective gratitude. Our heartfelt thanks also go to the speakers, Dr. Ben Chavez, Dr. Howard Zucker, Mr. Anthony Banbury, and Lisa Vanderpump, whose caring and compassion brought them all from far and wide to be here to deliver messages of hope and inspiration. To the performing artists, Etana, Chieck Hamala Diabate and his band, artists with one voice, and Independent Artists United, who gave themselves and their artistry to the cause of foregoing their customary compensation. And last, but by no means least, to our MC, who masterfully managed the time and the smooth flow of the program, our own popular New York One TV news anchor, author, and my friend, Ms. Cheryl Wills. Another round of applause, please. I would be remiss in my duty, however, if I do not single out two individuals without whose dogged persistence, hard work, and optimism this event would not have come to pass. I'm talking about my friends and colleagues, the producer par excellence, Mr. Gordon Tapper, chairman and president of Give Them a Hand Foundation, and Honorable Siddiq Wai, President and Chief Spokesperson of the United African Congress. It is now my pleasant task to bring to the stage all the beautiful people of the production team who made this all possible. Please proceed to the stage as I call your names. Gordon Tapper, Siddiq Wai, Aissata Kamara, Ahmed Carbo, Jean-Marie Edwards, James Maines, Terrence Dudley, Brandon Cohen, Tommaso D'Onofrio, Bevan Ingram, Jason McGonigal, and Patrick Sciarrata. Give them a big round of applause, please.
My advisor Cassidy.
And advisor to Ambassador Torriello, Cassidy. I'm sorry. Cassidy. And now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give Independent Artists United a warm round of applause as they come to the stage to perform the grand finale, Better Tomorrow.
Hands up. Keys in the handcuffs. Testing. There we go. Better tomorrow with our hands up. Leave the cars and the keys and the handcuffs. Life of a man so important, we should man up. Time told us stand down, now it's time to stand up. All the people in the world and the nation, all infected by this plague's wicked implication. Hope for us all in the light that we bring. Tomorrow's always better with the song that we sing. Just breathe. Together we can live. One man, one song, one wish. Changes to the world is a check on my list. We can do it all together. Turn our hands into fists, stand tall. Together we can win. I'm shouting out, reaching out for a limb. The world goes on, won't stop till it's over. Not until the world is free of Ebola.
Whether you're high, whether you're low, just be sure you know there'll be a better tomorrow. Yeah. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
No more war, no more religious division, only love and compassion to heal the nation. Now is the time to recognize, today is borrowed, so live and
Everybody across the world, show some love. Everybody across the world, clap your hands. Everybody across the world, move your feet. Ooh, everybody across the world, show some love. There'll be a better tomorrow.
As a people, we are here to survive. The pain that we feel lets us know we're alive. You can't stop now, turn the will in the drive. Will of the Lord with your hands to the sky. Come together, we can grant all the wishes. Stop all the hunger, stop all the sickness, stop all the war, stop all the violence. War with a love is a war that we're fighting. Here now, it shouts to the world, calling all the boys, calling all the girls, no force in the world. Let the mankind be free with your soul allowed, ease on your mind. Ebola can't stop us now. Everyone's a king, and it's time to wear the crown. War goes on, won't stop till it's over. Not until the world is free of Ebola.
There will be a better
everybody. Sing it like you believe it. Everybody, Etana.
There'll be a better tomorrow. Hey, there'll be a better tomorrow.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. Oh, oh, there'll be a better tomorrow. Oh, there'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the power behind Big Blue Records and that great song you just heard. Give them a hand. Thank you all for coming tonight. Did you have a good time? Wonderful. God bless you and God bless the continent of Africa. Proceeds go to the cause.
There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow. There'll be a better tomorrow.
We're gonna sing today on a brand new beat.
Whether you're high, whether you're low, let's be sure you know there'll be a better tomorrow. 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 There'll be a better tomorrow.
Ebola virus, this is the worst disease ever break up in West Africa, or I think all over the world. And the reason why we're here today, actually we're trying to set up an institution and collaborate with everybody else, institutions, philanthropists, and just goodwill ambassadors, so we can bring back that love to those kids who have actually lost whatever it takes, has no family, has nobody now, and they need just that corridor, somebody to call them and show them the love that they actually missed. And beyond that, Ebola is going to be a history. But beyond Ebola is our concern. That's why we're here tonight, and we bring it together not only the West African countries. Today, they've lost not only human resource, but also the economies of those countries are all shattered just because of this Ebola. They're going from ground zero, and it takes the humanity. It's a moral obligation for all of us to stand up, like it said. That's going to be a better tomorrow.
Towards a better tomorrow. We're really concerned about the thousands of children who have been orphaned by this disease. The problem is there's nothing a little kid needs or wants as much as a hug when they've lost their mother and their father or their close siblings. The problem is nobody wants to touch them. They're stigmatized. They have Ebola, or they came from an Ebola family. So they have to fend for themselves. We want to support the orphanages and the interim care centers that are taking care of them.